set in the 41st millennium. And because of the way the Imperium works, it means that there are holy relics of items that have existed for many millennia and still exist. So what we're trying to do at the moment is fill some of the gaps of some of the models that might predate the 41st millennium but still exist, either in pattern form or actual physical items that have been handed down. There's undoubtedly a load of interest in people wanting to do heresy, pre-heresy stuff, and there's a very vocal majority. And I think ultimately it'd be nice to try and get round to certainly visiting perhaps some of the heresy periods and stuff, or this Games Workshop in general. It's just a very big subject matter to deal with and digest. And you can't sort of drop the whole of the 41st millennium and say, well, we're not going to worry about the Tau for a bit, or the Dark Eldar, or the Orcs, we'll just wait. And we're just going to go deal with Space Marines versus Space Marines for a bit, or a time where it's even pre-heresy, where we're dealing with something entirely different. Because there's lots of people that obviously play at the 41st millennium, and that's where the games are situated, that's what their armies are that they play. And we only have one lot of resource, and we have an obligation to carry on with that. So it doesn't mean we can't do it, it just means that would be a lot of planning, and it will, it's quite a lot of work to bring that together without dropping the ball on the other one. So. Sorry, say it again. The Epic system. We haven't got any plans to do any more Epic models just at the moment. Oh, right, those ones. I think what we might do is take some of the ideas and designs over the period of time and redesign them. I think that it always works better if you design the big thing and then scale it down, rather than the little thing and scale it up. We can do that, but it involves going back into the design again, because it was designed this size, and that has its limitations. Titans always look massive in epic scale, until you scale them up 5 times, and a Reva's this tall, and actually it needs to be this tall. And it doesn't have a level of detail, it doesn't really work, it doesn't have enough joints in its legs. So we kind of have to, every time we do that, we have to redesign it. So that sometimes means we end up with purely the name at the end of the day that we carry forward, and then we'll work it back down into epic sometimes. I've got a gentleman white shirt.
Hopefully he hasn't been asked already. I was a little bit late in. Alan, I had a quick chat with you, I think, at Games Day, and there was some rumours about sort of Tzeentch-based 40k bits coming out. Is there any developments? Or?
Yeah, you did unfortunately miss the answer to this question, but I'll tell you anyway. In essence, we've got several quite well developed stories to go into the future of Imperial Army. And the one with the Tzeentch-based prison insurrection on an Imperial penal colony has been not so much kicked into the long grass as put on hold as something else has come in front of it. So it's not been dismissed, and actually quite a lot of work's been done on that. But it won't be the next book out of the gate now. And it's going to be a larger Warzone-based book involving the Manacles and the Necrons quite heavily. But the Tzeentch stuff is still there. We haven't dismissed it. Actually, quite a bit of work's been done on it. It's much more insidious by way of a plot than a slightly more open battle that occurred on Brax. And it involves, and all I'm going to tell you is a bit of teaser, different when we get around to it, it's a cult, it's a Tzeentchian cult that crosses different Space Marine legions that went renegade. So there's world bearers in it, as well as what's left of some of the Phantoms and more recent renegades. So it's a kind of an overarching Tzeentchian conspiracy group of the more recent as well as the old legions as well. So rather than just thousands.
So just to expand maybe on, I don't know whether you talked about this, but about that the Minotaur stroke Xerath stuff, is it? So is there's going to be a lot more Minotaur stuff coming out? It's just because I've seen the new hero models come out, and they look awesome, and I'm just sort of thinking, never even considered doing a Space Marine army, and I looked at those and thought, maybe, actually,
it's the Minotaurs I think we're going to focus on a bit, certainly in the next one, maybe past that, but certainly the next one, and basically carry on.
Yeah.
I got here late as well, so hopefully nothing like this has been asked.
You sound as though you've come all the way from America.
I have.
It's quite early for you.
Yeah, no, I made it in record time.
Yeah.
So, as far as I've noticed, a lot of things from the Batavor books are kind of still trickling out, to this day. Will any further Eldar models perhaps trickle out? I noticed there were like a lot of things in the Corsair Codex part of it that could potentially have a conversion set here or there.
I think that we're probably pretty well finished with the Eldar just for the moment. That doesn't mean we won't be able to catch up with some of that stuff. It's a question of resource when time allows. Occasionally, we've got a few weeks to design something that we can slot something in. There's a few models still missing from the Eldar book. There's the Space Wolf guy, Brand Red Bull, which needs to be finished, and he will get done. And there was a whole lot of characters within Badab that weren't named. We're never going to make them all, but there's always an opportunity for people to do that. So I wouldn't hold your breath for too many more Eldar things.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, it's been like a plethora of them.
Yeah,
so it's been quite nice.
We've had quite a lot. So, but all the races do get revisited every few years. The plan is really to go round. The two major ones that we haven't done are the Necrons and the Dark Eldar, and we'll like to try and get those two done, and then we're back at the beginning pretty well again. So we might not do it in the same order. We've got Siege and Slanesh.
Yeah, we've got to put some attention to Slanesh at some point. Dread that particular plan.
But the next book will be Necrons, so
that'll be a fun one.
Next Imperial Armor.
Going back to what that guy said about, are you going to do any of the epic stuff in 40k scale? The last race that habitually use Titan-like machines, the Orcs, any plans to do a proper Gargant rather than just the little stompers?
I think we may do next time we get to revisit Orcs. They had stompers already. We wanted to do a Gargant, but Gargant was a big model and we didn't really have the resource to do it with that book. And because they already had stompers, we kind of thought, well, they've got something. But I think next time we come round to Orcs, then we may be able to concentrate on doing some of the larger models because we've got a pretty good range of tanks and small things. And there's the Orc Bomber to do and then potentially the Gargant. But I'd like to think we should get at least one of those two next time. And the Bomber would be probably a little bit more of a thunderbolt than a pure bomber. Have you again? I didn't. There's
a chap right at the back.
Oh, the man at the back. The man at the back.
Plans for non-tracked Imperial vehicles like the Taurus and Venator. Things like troop trucks, bikes, things like that.
One of the things is, and I'm not saying that this is going to be the case forever, but with the generic Imperial Guard vehicles, we wanted to always try and make it tracked if possible. Now, therefore, specific regiments might get different sorts of vehicles. For instance, the Elysians have got the Taurus and the Taurus Venator, which was an opportunity to do some wheel-based vehicles because they were slightly different in how they operated. But we kind of thought that the Imperial Guard generally are going to be the grinding big army that carries on, a bit like the Red Army in the Second World War. They are the infinite mass of troops with the tanks that just plod on slowly and unstoppingly. So, and that kind of doesn't suit real vehicles that much. So I wouldn't hold your breath for sort of like wheeled chimeras and things like that.
You mentioned the next year Imperial Armor books and the Dark Eldar haven't been done yet. Are they in the next few books? Well, obviously not the ones you've mentioned, but are they in the current cycle?
I'll let Alan answer that, but I would say that the next Imperial Armor book, Imperial Armor 12, it's got Necrons, it's got Minotaurs, and might even have Death Lord Krieg in it, hopefully. And then the next Warhammer book is Battle for Blackfire Pass, which
Third Battle for Blackfire Pass.
Third battle, yeah, not the first two. The minor ones, you know what books about them. No, this is a proper one, this is a big battle. which is obviously orcs and goblins versus dwarves and everything. So we've got those 2 books to do. So the plans of anything that goes after that obviously gets a little bit more faded. So we've got some ideas of what we'd like to do, but they may change. But
one of the advantages of the way we operate is that actually we can change our minds quite easily because we're on. Which it may not sound like advantage, but it is because we can respond to what people want, but also we can have a better idea and put it into place and not be wedged down to a tight schedule. So when I say we've got X amount of different plans in effect, that's exactly what they are. They may be used, may never be used. They may be altered, may collapse and stitched together. And as Tony said, past the immediate future, it's very ethereal. On the map of the Dark Eldar audience, yes, I did construct a particular plot for those. That upon hearing for the actual idea for the plot, one of the other Forgeworld staff members dubbed it Attack of the Wrong Ones. Because apparently it was a bit scary, the actual plot that I had. So I may have to tone it down slightly if it ever actually reached it. But I had what seemed to me to be a ridiculously good idea to demonstrate the Dark Eldar in all of their particular glory. And even for 40k it was a bit bleak. So we'll have to see where that goes down. But you know, you may see that, may see something else. Again, we may just have a better idea before we get there. That's about right.
That's about it. Yeah. I'm going to go for the gentleman in the corner here. Sorry, I'm losing that. What would big Necron things look like? I hesitate to tell you because I think we're still at the concept stage, but we've got some ideas on which direction it could go. But until we see something either as a picture or a mock-up model that we like, then it may well change. But you know, one of the things we did actually solve very well was the void story that we did, which was the centipede type thing. And that does lead you on to other sorts of similar things. But I think it works really nicely with the Necrons. It fits in well with them. And stuff like that on that sort of angle might well work with even larger stuff.
Expanding sort of the relic vehicles and armour for the Space Marines with the Temptors and the old school Land Raiders, is there any chance of perhaps getting one of the Space Marine Feldlines, the Space Marine equivalent of the old Battle Great Reserve? Is there any chance of perhaps having that come through
the Fellblade, as only as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, or Alan will do, has only ever appeared in the sort of 31st, 30th millennium.
So it's relics from earlier stages coming through these days, very rare.
Yeah, but because it's that sort of thing. I think when the Space Marine chapters were restructured, when it became chapters from Legions, they kind of lost the connection with these sort of super heavy tanks that they call it today. So I'm not sure whether we build that into the IP of the 41st millennium, really, something like that. We're going to have to, we've probably got one or two more questions depending on how long they are there.
I've got a request instead of a request. Would it be possible for Forgeworld to make sets of, say, pieces that are like high demand? So like a Space Marine Company Bolter set or Space Marine Missile Launcher set? Because it seems impossible to get all of them without buying into like eBay or big sites or other companies. And it just seems like a really obvious thing to sell.
So what you're suggesting is instead of being able to, so particular items...
I don't want to buy 10 Space Marine Captains to get 10 Convery Melters from my 10 Wolf Guards.
We will have a look at, I think it's a reasonable question. We do look all the time at how we structure those sets and try and make them as useful as possible. It's of course impossible to try and do sets for everybody what they all want. But I take your point, and we can certainly have a look at it.
I think it's a missed opportunity, certainly.
They are always very popular weapon sets, especially. So I think perhaps restructuring some make it possible. fun.
Give me a shout, I'll write some ideas now.